Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 359 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. This week is the turn of my workshop to be scrutinised using my Honeybee integrated health management system, and my thoughts on why it might not be a good idea to remove dead colonies from your apiary too soon. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. This week's podcast is brought to you, in part, by H.I.H.M.S Multi-Guard. So,
when you need a little peace of mind that your bees are safe from dangers of all kind, pesticides, hornets, wasps and mice are no match for H.I.H.M.S. The H.I.H.M.S Multi-Guard is the best one in town. Keeps your bees safe all year round. The ultimate solution has been found. It's H.I.H.M.S.
The H.I.H.M S Multi-Guard fits nearly all beehives and makes beekeeping much easier. H.I.H.M.S.
Hi everyone. Welcome back to the podcast and a much cooler feel to the weather. Thankfully, those incredibly hot days appear to be over for another year, and although it is still only August, the hottest forecast daytime temperature over the next couple of weeks appears to be somewhere in the mid-20s Celsius, which is altogether more manageable. Rain still looks light and sporadic, maybe the odd shower here and there, but nothing by the way of any continuous steady rainfall. We've been busy tidying up around the apiaries. Most of you will be wondering how I managed to get in such a mess, and honestly I sometimes wonder too. I guess it's the consequence of lots of equipment and rushing around trying to do too much in one go. But I made a new promise to myself recently: spend the last 20 minutes of each apiary visit having a drink and taking stock of where we're at the same time getting spare equipment stowed away and tidied. So, for instance, we were over at the borage and pumpkins this last week. What a sad sight that is now becoming. Sad in that the pumpkin plants are withering and the pumpkins themselves are turning bright orange already. I say already, but it's probably around this time that they start to change. It just feels a little bit of a shock seeing the summer slide away to be replaced by signs of the coming autumn. Anyway, at the apiary site here, we have several roofs, a few spare supers with some frames in, and a pile of queen excluders. These now have no use being at this site and need to be removed back to base. They could have been moved a couple of visits ago, to be honest, and that's where I need to just get a little bit smarter. So, keeping that promise I made myself, this week, after finishing the video recording and preparing all the hives for their journey back home, I collected up all of that spare equipment, loaded it onto the trailer and brought it home once more, leaving the apiary site clean, tidy and with only the hives to bring home. The 31 hives we had here have now become 30. We have lost one colony to wasps and robbers, but actually it was a drone-laying queen anyway, and by the time I discovered that fact, it was too late to do anything, such as uniting them with another colony. On the subject of colonies robbed and dead, there is a very good reason for leaving it on site, and this actually falls nicely into the realms of my Honeybee integrated health management system. Looking at what has happened here, we can view it from the H.I.H.M.S perspective and look at how I'm dealing with it accordingly. We arrived at the apiary to discover the colony was dead and the brood frames being robbed. The hive was set on a pallet with two other hives, both active and doing very nicely. And there is a temptation to simply block up the entrance and take the hive away. After all, I've just proudly announced my renewed focus on apiary hygiene, and it makes sense to take the hive away and get it cleaned up as soon as possible, doesn't it? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Let me give you another suggestion that might, once I've explained it, make sense to you. The dead drone-laying queen colony was being absolutely hammered by robbers, wasps and honeybees. I opened the top of the hive and hundreds of bees and wasps erupted from the exposed frames. Actually, there was quite a lot of food still in the frames, so these nasty little sneaky robbers had only just got to work. Robbing bees and wasps will strip a box of food stores very, very quickly, and so I would estimate they had only just found a way into this hive. Let's propose that I block up the entrance and take the hive away. What would be the impact of that? Well, we've successfully prevented other bees and wasps from getting into this hive and not only stealing all the food, but also, if there had been a disease in that hive, we've prevented the spread of any disease, and also, let's say it died out because of a very heavy varroa population, many of those robbing bees would find themselves inadvertently carrying varroa mites back to their own colony. Not a great thing to have happen. So, success. We've prevented this from happening. But hold on a second. Is there another unforeseen outcome that might occur if I carry out my proposed actions? The removal of the dead hive, and in fact my actions immediately prior to removing it, could have dire consequences elsewhere. Here's how I view it. The colony is close to dead. I need to open the hive to see what's going on, and the robbers immediately fly out of the hive but circle back to the entrance. I close the hive and block the entrance, strap it up and carry it across to the trailer to take home. By the time I return to my inspections, and specifically to the pallet that colony was on, I'm in for a bit of a shock. All of the robbing wasps and bees that flew out of the dead hive have now suddenly lost that food source location. What do? Well, they fly to what they think is the hive, but actually it will be one of the healthy live hives that was situated behind the dead one. Remember, I said there were 3 hives on this pallet? You would think a normal healthy colony would be able to fight off most of the would-be robbers, and you'd be right. But this is a different scenario. Here we have hundreds of robbers all suddenly swamping the entrance to a healthy hive, and they simply can't hold back the tide. There are far too many robbing wasps and bees to prevent access to the brood box, and they become overrun by those robbing bees and wasps. Another colony potentially being robbed out and lost. Worse still, it could be that there are so many robbers that they get to attack both of the other hives on the pallet, and I lose 2 more colonies. It would be far better for me to leave the dead colony with the entrance blocked, sat on the pallet in its previous position. The bees and wasps can't get in, but they do still have a hive to fly around and try to find an entrance in which they can get in. Eventually they discover that they can't get in and head off elsewhere to try their luck. What they don't do is all descend onto the hive behind the dead one and overwhelm it. Yes, some of the robbers will make a move on the 2 other colonies on this pallet, but they won't have the numerical advantage, and as such will find themselves being fought off more effectively. Eventually, the robbers will disperse to head off in different directions to look for an easier reward. So that's exactly what I did. I blocked up the entrance and left it on the pallet. We're back next week, and will then be able to safely remove the dead hive without causing a huge kerfuffle and lose yet more colonies. The dead hive needs removing quickly. I've learnt to my cost that dead hives left for any lengthy period of time simply become a breeding ground for wax moth. Stupidly, I've made that mistake over and over and over again. Not so much these days, I'm glad to say. It's particularly important if you have polyhives, as I do. The wax moth larvae can easily chomp their way into and even through the poly walls of a dead brood box, and actually that also opens up the hive to wasp penetration. The wasps simply chew through the walls of the polyhive, and before you know it, the inside of the hive is empty and the brood box pretty difficult to reuse, if at all. So within a week or so, the dead hive needs to come back to the workshop, and that brings me nicely on to the Honeybee Integrated Health Management System topic for this week, and it's my workshop that I turn my attention to this week. Workshop hygiene, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. Here, I'm really thinking about a workshop or shed or garage, or anywhere in fact, that you might keep and store equipment ready for use at varying times of the season. It's also the place that we do any remedial work and clean up both boxes and frames. We have two workshop areas, our main workshop and our front of house work area at the unit in Norwich. If I'm honest, it's always been a struggle to keep control of, and I really don't know why. I think building the business quickly at first, buying in more equipment than I had easy storage for, and growing colony numbers all played a part in this situation, but now I feel we have everything under control. Well, almost. This winter, we'll see the entire operation finally get sorted and the equipment ready for the new season well in advance, stacked neatly and ready to go. Well, at least that's my promise to myself. Let's see how it all pans out. In terms of my H.I.H.M.S requirements, it's pretty much about dealing with any comb and hive debris in a timely and tidy way. The main workshop is fairly open, and being in the countryside, exposed to rats and mice, which are the biggest problem, it's important, therefore, to make sure any wax, comb, honey, propolis or other hive material is dealt with quickly and effectively. One of the principles of good honeybee husbandry is brood frame replacement on a regular annual basis. If you only have a couple of hives, it's really not a problem. A dozen or so frames with old wax in it can easily be dealt with at the weekend. But what if you have 100 colonies and you're taking out 3 frames from each colony each year to keep fresh comb in the hives and remove pests and diseases that may be held within those combs? That's a situation that I've found in the past, and it's not always easy to find the time to quickly deal with it all. For me, the key is to cut out the comb from those frames and render it down as quickly as possible. The frames can then be boiled at a later time. If you can keep the amount of wax waste being left exposed in your workspace to a minimum, the less likely you are to have any rodent issues. That said, we do have a number of rodent traps tucked away in the corners of the workshop, and of course these get most use in the autumn months, unsurprisingly. There is a school of thought that says it's more efficient to simply have a bonfire and destroy the frames and any infections or pests they may be carrying than to go through the lengthy and costly process of cutting out wax and boiling frames, particularly with the cost of gas at the moment. Honestly, I don't think there's a great deal of difference in the total cost if you were to add in the labour of preparing and boiling all of those frames. So I guess it's horses for courses. Certainly any older or damaged frames are destined for the bonfire. For the hobbyist beekeeper, a simple setup using a gardener's potting tray to cut out and scrape frames into is very worthwhile. They have a raised back and sides which contain the debris nicely and can be easily emptied into a rubbish bag for disposal or rendering. Any tools used should be treated in the same way as hive tools. Wash, scrub and sterilise them after use, keep them dry, and have a lightly oiled surface to prevent rusting before the next cleaning session. Workbenches and floors need to be kept clean, and a final sweep up before finishing for the day is a must. It's so easy to tread wax, propolis and honey onto our shoes and then traipse that down the garden path and into the house. You have been warned. If you're getting into your car or truck, then rubber car mats are a really useful way of preventing the sticky mess from spreading onto the carpets. I like to wait until the colder months before scraping queen excluders, clearer boards and the like. The cold weather allows the propolis and wax to be removed so much more easily than when it's hot outside. The plastic queen excluders are washed in a hand-hot washing soda bath, and the metal excluders are scorched with a flame. All are then stacked with the metal excluders on the bottom to prevent rodent damage. The metal queen excluders actually are used all over the place through the winter as the base for any boxes to be stacked on. Supers in particular are stacked outside, clean and ready to go. The base is usually a couple of pallets, followed by a metal queen excluder, again to prevent rodents getting inside. The supers are stacked up to 10 high, and then the roof placed on top, everything being strapped down to prevent our winter storms from blowing them over. The comb and any other wax we've managed to save, stuff like damaged foundation that can't go into a frame, or frames that we've damaged before going anywhere near a hive, all need dealing with quickly. We use a gas stove, the large cast iron camp stove style. The bigger, better burners are the ones to go for. I'll post a link in the notes to show you exactly what we use. A steam cleaner for frames is very useful, or failing that, a double boiler can be used to render small amounts. If you're looking for something that falls in between a small double boiler and one of these large steam cleaners, is a couple of stainless steel stock pots. I did this a few years ago. Buy one smaller than the other so that it fits inside. Water is boiled in the larger pot, with the wax in the smaller pot suspended inside the bigger one. Check out some of my older videos to see what I mean. The key here is to not leave anything laying around for rodents or pests of any kind to locate. If they can't find anything in your shed, they'll simply move on to somewhere else. The flip side of that, of course, is if they do find something worth staying for, you might find a whole family of rodents settling down for the long cold winter with you as their unsuspecting provider. Finally, and in response to a couple of emails, feeding right now is emergency feeding, not winter feeding. Don't overdo it. As long as the bees have some food and plenty of space for the queen to lay in over the next couple of weeks, they should be fine. Then you can check them again and, let's face it, the ivy is going to be in flower very soon. Just make sure they have a little food to see them through until the next inspection and they'll be fine. Well, that's it for this week. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible. No waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company.